Capito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Cantwell, and thank you, Governor, for being not only nominated, but thank you for your testimony and your willingness to speak to me, as it seems like you've spoken to everybody, which is incredible. Last week, I enjoyed our conversation. We talked about some of the same issues that many people have brought up. I'm going to go to the EDA first of all. You and I talked about how the EDA's presence in your state of Rhode Island, and I've talked about how impactful and what a growing impact EDA has had in our state. But I do have a question in terms of the president's proposed stimulus recommends an additional $3 billion for EDA. And I value and respect the focus of that. I have great concerns about an agency that has an annual budget of $330 million to be able to absorb not just the $3 billion that he's proposing, but also the $1.5 billion that we put in with the CARES Act. So how would you propose to be able to meet that capacity challenge, I think, that EDA would have to make sure that the money's being spent not just thrown out, but also making sure that it's targeted, well spent, and efficiently spent? Do you have any ideas on that?
Yes, thank you. So first, let me say, as we rebuild post-COVID, I believe that the EDA can and needs to play a very strong and important role in the rebuilding to help Americans get back to work in their communities. Secondly, I understand your concern. You know, I have been governor for 6 years, a public executive for 10 years. Implementation matters. I have a strong track record of good management, transparency, and implementation. And what I will say to you is I understand the concern. It's obviously very valid. I need to get in the job and be confirmed, and we'll come back to you with your permission to have a discussion about, you know, whether there are any additional resources needed in EDA in order to effectively implement such a large infusion.
I would welcome that. I think that would be wise, and I think that would be a great way to address the challenge. I'm going to switch over to NTIA. I know some others have asked you about this, but we talked about broadband. In your state, you have more urban broadband issues. We have a lot of rural broadband. Certainly this committee has done a lot of work in this. But one of the areas that we've really fallen short is on the mapping situation. Who really is served, and to what degree are they served, and what can we do to more accurately deploy the federal resources to those that it's intended for, the unserved and underserved. And so I would just encourage you. West Virginia was one of the first 8 states to be in the broadband mapping. There are now 22 states that are in there. They're using state resources as well, because you can't just rely on the providers to tell you where they're serving, or just one state entity, I think, or federal entity. I think you need like an all hands on deck approach. And I know this is important to you for your state. Do you have any other perspectives on how we can get to that broadband mapping accurately when we see the urgency that the pandemic has brought for broadband deployment?
Thank you. I share your urgency on this, and as I've said, it is life-saving. People need access to broadband to go to the doctor, to go to school, to have a job. So what I will commit to prioritizing it, and also to engaging stakeholders. I have learned in my time as governor that if you talk to people on the ground, companies, constituencies, individuals, you have a better assessment of the challenges on the ground, and therefore, you know, better able to meet their needs.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. Sounds like a good governor approach to me at the same time. And lastly, I'll just mention, as I did to you, our NOAA facility that we're very proud of in Fairmont. We do a lot of supercomputing there. We also have the Enterprise Security Operations Center, which it does a lot of cybersecurity. You can imagine a lot of the data that is collected in the satellite sphere is very important to our national security, but also to our homeland security in terms of protecting life and property, in terms of being able to not just predict, but be able to front run certain kinds of what would potentially be weather disasters or other things. So I would just, I mentioned to you, I invite you to come to Fairmont upon your confirmation, and to see the NOAA facility and to see where the great folks in Fairmont can be more helpful and use that expertise that they combine with the educational centers to be able to enlarge the presence. And my time is done, and I listened to what my chairman says, and he says, stick to the time. So thank you very much.